It is 12 o'clock. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Social Behavior and Presence session. We're looking forward to having these 4 wonderful papers presented. I've already asked and shared with the authors. I'll be giving notifications at 2 minutes left, 1 minute left, and 15 seconds. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome Kushani to present the first paper, Don't Look at Me Like That, How AR Face Recognition Changes Our Social Behavior. Thank you, Kushani.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Kushani Pereira from University of Otago, presenting our work, Don't Look at Me Like That, How AR Face Recognition Changes Our Social Behavior. So let's start off by discussing what pervasive augmented reality is. So, as you see on the right-hand side of the screen, conventional augmented reality are sporadically used, single-purpose, task-driven applications, such as when AR is used to visualize interior designing options. But as you see on the left-hand side of the screen, pervasive AR systems are, on the other hand, omnipresent systems. These systems are continuous, multi-purpose, and are always on. They're also aware of and are responsive to users' contexts, thus delivering tailored information to each user on the go in real time. So, real-time face recognition technology has already been explored in several contexts. One of them is to assist users with prosopagnosia, which is a neurological disability in recognizing faces. And face recognition via AR devices has already been explored to assist with improving human memory. Our motivation for this study comes from the accelerated integration of face recognition technology and AR, such as Meta announcing the pairing of face recognition technology with the upcoming AR launches, and developers increasingly incorporating currently available face recognition technologies with Meta Ray-Ban glasses, exposing unassuming bystanders to face recognition and receiving all the publicly available information about these bystanders. However, when face recognition technology is delivered via pervasive AR, it would result in information asymmetry, as no two users' requirements in any given moment are the same. Thus, the system will tailor bystanders' personal information to match the glass wearer's needs or requirements in that moment, leading to an asymmetry in information exchange. So to explore that, we came up with 3 main research questions. The first research question looked into how this asymmetry will affect the first impressions the users form of others. The second question looked into how it will affect users' sense of control during interactions when using these systems. And in our final question, we looked into how using pervasive AR systems with face recognition technology will be ethically judged by the users. So we explored these questions using a user study with 50 participants. Each session was attended by 4 participants and was conducted in a lab environment using a snap spectacle-based technology probe. Each participant was exposed to 3 conditions based on 2 variables. The first variable, symmetry, determined if both users saw the same amount of information about each other or not. And the second variable, awareness variable, determined if participants were aware of the symmetry of the information exchange, as indicated by the arrows down there, as well as what kind of information their partner was receiving about them, indicated by the colored bars. So in this symmetric aware condition, the first condition, this level was defined by the lowest level of information that both participants agreed to share with one another. And moving on to the next condition, asymmetric aware condition. So asymmetric conditions aligned more with the concept of pervasive AR, because as I said before, no 2 users' contexts or requirements in a given moment would be the same, thus leading the system to deliver tailored information about the recognized bystanders. So the asymmetric condition was based on the level of information each participant or each glass user defined that they'd like to know about the people around them. So if we look at Jason's view now, we can see that the arrows are now grayed out, indicating that the exchange was asymmetrical. And the blue, and the blue bar indicates that Jason's partner Sarah would only be seeing Jason's name. So if we move on to Sarah's view, we can see that Sarah is in fact only seeing Jason's name, but she has all these other colored bars indicating that Jason would be seeing a lot more information about her. And the final condition was the asymmetric unaware condition, where there were no indications, but the exchange was still asymmetric. This study was predominantly qualitative, therefore our data came from interviews. This interview data was transcribed and analyzed using an inductive thematic analysis, where we developed over 80 codes that were iteratively collated to develop 6 themes. And these are the 6 themes. We will go through each one. The first theme encompassed users' views on how the information they received via the glasses influenced the first impressions they formed of their partners. So participants started to form impressions solely based on the information they received via the glasses, as opposed to the interaction they had with their partner. And participants saw their partner who received more information about them during asymmetrical exchanges as dishonest and untrustworthy. And finally, participants noted that they presented themselves in a way to match what their partner was seeing about them. So moving on to the next theme, participants talked about their sense of agency during social interactions when using these systems. Participants noted a power imbalance during asymmetrical exchanges, as one participant had more information and could lead the conversation more, and therefore they preferred to have symmetric exchanges instead. And also they highlighted how the awareness feature did not provide substantial agency during these interactions. In the next theme, participants talked about their need for control and how we can ensure it. They talked about what kind of information would be acceptable to be delivered via these glasses, where they identified scraped information to be extremely problematic, and the importance of consent. They also talked about how it was too much information to be delivered during a first interaction. And they rather preferred to have only basic information or gradually revealing information as a relationship matured. They also found recognition of non-users to be problematic, as well as the unprompted delivery of information without user intervention to be problematic. And in this theme, we encompassed all of participants' views on how using such systems in social contexts will change our behaviors. Participants noted that we would initiate conversations or interactions differently because we'd already know information about the people we are approaching. And they also noted that it could lead to several unpleasant situations, such as being exploited, manipulated, stalked, or even feeling like stalkers because you have access to this system, thus potentially leading to users being ostracized. And in this next theme, participants talked about how this information they received could be used to modulate their interactions or tailor their interactions. For example, they talked about how it could help shy individuals approach conversations more confidently, but they also noted that this information could be used to filter out people altogether, thus leading to certain superficial interactions or forced interactions. In the final theme, participants noted that because of some of the negative comments they had about face recognition via pervasive AR, they'd rather have pervasive AR systems deliver just general information as opposed to personal face recognition-based information. And they highlighted that if pervasive AR systems were to deliver face recognition information, this should be limited to specific contexts, such as during conferences or to deal with medical emergencies. So those were the 6 themes we developed. And with that, now we'll attempt to answer the 3 main research questions that I introduced to you before. So the first question talked about how the asymmetry will affect users' first impressions. And as we talked about, participants started to regard their partners who received more information as dishonest because they were requesting a lot more information during a first interaction from others. And participants also noted that the impressions they were forming were purely based on the information itself, thus indicating that these systems, when integrated with facial recognition, will have an influence on the first impressions we form. Secondly, the second question was about the control participants had during these interactions when using these systems. And as I said, as we noted before, there was a shift in control during interactions from users to the system, as the system decide what kind of information was shared with others about you, what kind of information you received about others, as well as the asymmetrical exchanges created a power imbalance that really gravitated the conversation towards a partner who had more information. And our final question was about the ethical implications of face recognition-based pervasive AR systems. And based on STAR's ethical framework for emerging technologies, we identified three main categories of social and ethical consequences of these systems. The first was to individuals. These consequences affected their autonomy, sense of identity, security, and treatment of one another. The second set of social and ethical implications affected the society as a whole, such as causing information inequity-based disparities, as well as a sense of surveillance. The final category was ethical implications arising due to shortcomings of the technology, such as inaccurate data misrepresenting users around you. And finally, we recognize that facial recognition via pervasive AR is inevitable. Therefore, it's crucial that we proactively address these ethical implications to ensure a value proposition to users. And we believe that the best way to ensure that is through informed consent and information equity. Thank you.
Wonderful questions. Also, for those people who are standing, we do have some seats over here on the other side if you'd like to join. But yes, questions, please raise your hand. So I have a question. So, I mean, the different levels, it was interesting that you were talking about negotiation. I think, I'm curious, like, if you might have standard levels of kind of divulging of information. It kind of reminds me of when I go on a website and it's asking like different levels of cookies. Yeah. Like based on your research, are there any recommended levels that you would have?
So for our study, we used the levels of how we disclose different levels of information depending on the kind of social media network we're on. So it was either basic information or basic and professional information like we would on professional websites like LinkedIn, and social information such as our hobbies, what we'd like to do, what we aspire to be, things we share on more casual networks such as Instagram or Facebook. So those are the basis. That's the basis we went on.
Wonderful. We have time for one more question. Okay, let's thank our speaker. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Xinyi, a PhD student from School of Architecture, Tsinghua University. And I'm honored to be here, and thanks you all for listening. Today, I'm going to share about dynamic measurement of visitor behavioral engagement in informal environments using head-mounted displays. My presentation will begin with the introduction. First, the research background. As we can see, informal learning environments such as museums, science centers, and zoos are crucial venues for lifelong learning. Visitors' engagement is a key metric for evaluating learning effectiveness. So understanding and responding to engagement helps optimize the learning experience. However, at present, the definition of informal environment engagement is still vague, and there is a lack of refined measurement. But with the increasing adoption of head-mounted displays in informal settings, they will show great potential as tools for measuring visitor engagement. On one hand, they analyze and visually present behavioral data from visitor engagement. And on the other hand, they use real-time multimodal behavioral data from HMDs to calculate visitor engagement. And HMDs integrate data processing and information presentation, making the idiom tool for the perception, calculation, and feedback of visitor engagement. But current applications focus on experience enhancement over systematic engagement measurement. Despite HMD's multimodal sensing advantages in capturing positional, ocular, and interaction data. So regarding applications, we reviewed the evolution of HMDs in informal learning environments. As you can see, their widespread application from lightweight smart glasses to more capable HMDs provides a practical foundation for our work. And our theoretical framework integrates educational psychology, museum studies, and HCI. We define engagement as visitors' psychological and behavioral state of allocating attention and cognitive effort to understand exhibits. And here you can see the red star is our theoretical position of this paper, mainly about behavioral engagement. Methodologically, we adopt a Sinatra's engagement measurement spectrum, and from this side to the other side, focusing on meso and macro level analysis, and also can see that in person-oriented perspective, there are some theoretical framework about cognitive, affective, and motivational, and we'll also mainly focus on this one. And our literature review indicates HMD's potential for measuring engagement by capturing trajectory, position, orientation, and eye tracking data. And here is our research goal. We designed a two-stage user study framework whose core contribution is the theory and method for HMD-based engagement, sensing, and computation, leading to two distinct applications. And you can see from this figure, the users, one for meso-level behavioral description and feature extraction, and the stage two, the user study two, will for macro-level real-time engagement modeling. First, we conduct our user study one in a Chinese classic garden replica, a typical informal learning environment integrating diverse exhibits and spatial sequences. And you can see the user study one aimed to collect behavioral data, construct visitor data portraits, and identify potential data features for engagement measurement. And all the data will be collected by HMDs. As you can see, we will work through the rules, and the HMDs will collect the data and do the measurement. And we developed a unified HMD data collection platform to simultaneously capture head pose and eye tracking data. This platform is patent pending, and we use Pico 4 Enterprise HMDs, whose video see-through capability allows clear perception of the physical environment, which means that you can see the physical environment through the HMDs. So you can still see the environment viewing the scenes, and in the same time, the device will collect the data. And the study site was the classical Changyuan replica hall at the Chinese Garden Museum, offering a stable physical environment suitable for data collection. Participants freely explored the garden wearing the HMDs. Well, the system recorded their behavioral data, and here's the procedure. You can see the step one. We will invite visitors to join the experiment, and step two, let them getting familiar with HMDs, and the step three, we will confirm spatial anchor points, and the last step, the visitors start touring and take photos. And participants were independent visitors, and the age were showing in the figure, reflecting the museum's actual visiting demographics. Then we constructed visitor data portraits using planar trajectory heat maps combined with panoramic fixation heat maps. As you can see, the two heat maps will show the visitor data portraits. We first identified key viewing points from trajectory data, then aggregated eye tracking data at these points to generate fixation heat maps. So you can see here is a plan of the garden, and when the viewing points were the blue points and the red rectangular you can see in the figure, and we draw the eye tracking heat map in the figure. And the data-driven viewing points showed partial alignment with the spatial sequence theory of scholar Peng Yigang, which is a Chinese scholar of Chinese classical garden. This method effectively validates design intentionality through imperial data and reflects behavioral engagement. So you can see that in the different viewpoints, you can see some beautiful architecture or some trees or some stones. And fixation heat map analysis demonstrates potential for developing adaptive systems and reflects cognitive engagement from the behavioral proxies. The red points will show that the visitor is focused on something maybe like the architecture in the other side, and maybe the water or the trees. And in user study 2, it aimed to validate and refine these features using ground truth engagement labels for quantitative engagement computation. And the protocol was similar to study 1, but participants self-reported their engagement levels in real time using the HMD controller. They just use this controller to report the ground truth of engagement from 0 to 1. And based on the experiment sampling method to minimize interference. And before this study, participants were briefed on the operational definitions of engagement states to ensure precise understanding. Participants in study 2 were architecture students because these students, they are familiar with Chinese classical gardens, and they're thinking about the viewpoints or the interest will reflect the data. And based on the experimental records and data analysis, we have initially identified 6 potential data features. Descriptive data showed bimodal distribution of engagement labels, and eye velocity required log transformation to approximate a normal distribution. And also, correlations for some features emerged only after temporal smoothing, so we identified the optimal smoothing window size for each feature. And the correlation analysis finalized the 4 effective features: velocity, pitch, eye velocity, and eye openness. Then we designed an LSTM regression model, which is very suitable for capturing the features of temporal data and modeling it. A weighted loss function addressed the bimodal label distribution, and training used the leave one out cross-validation. As you can see from the figure, all models converged properly, achieve a mean validation MACE of 0.146. And on the best performing test fold 12, the model successfully captured abrupt changes in engagement. A binary classifier derived from the predictions achieved 72.4% accuracy. The figure showed that the predicted engagement aligned with the ground truth. And heightened engagement correlates with reduced mobility, stable head orientation, and sustained ocular focus. These four features corroborate and extend the prior work. In conclusion, the contributes lies in HMD-based engagement sensing and computation, including a cross-domain theoretical framework, a data-driven methodology for visitor engagement analysis, and an LSTM model for real-time engagement prediction. And limitations include hardware constraints and generalizability. Future work will expand the samples, scenarios, and hardware compatibility, advancing adaptive XR for cultural heritage. Long-term HMDs as first-person sensing platforms may redefine cognitive science. That's all. Thanks for listening.
Questions? We have a very shy group today. Really? Yes.
Towards the end of your presentation, you mentioned that you used the 0.5 value to distinguish between the ISTM's classification as engaged or disengaged. How did that value come? Why did you choose 0.5? Was it just because it's in between, or how did it decide on that?
Yes, because from the data analysis, we found that maybe you can see this figure, and the blue line is the predicted engagement data, and the orange one is the ground truth. It almost it is almost 0 or 1 because we use the control control from the HMDs to reflect the engagement, and so we just want to design a model to reflect whether the visitor is in an engagement or not, but it will be all from the data from the HMD without the controller. So you can see that in this figure, the predicted engagement will have a 70% accuracy. I think it is.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
We have time for one more. So I think really, really early on in the slide, this is a very naive, simple question, but I think you mentioned there are potentially 3 types of engagement: cognitive, affective, and behavioral. Could you just share a little bit about the trade-offs? Like, how did you decide on behavioral? What might be some trade-offs, pros and cons versus the other metrics in engagement?
Yes, maybe I will show you this figure. Yeah, because we are students from School of Architecture, and we want to focus on when the visitor is viewing some interest points or not. And so we use the HMDs. It can collect the position data and also the moving data of the people and of the eye tracking. So from the heat map, we can see that people will stay in some viewing points like B1, B2, B3, B4. And these points from this heat map, you can see that the whole viewing, there are some main architecture or the main water or some beautiful trees. So we want to.
Hello everyone, I'm Hyungil Nam from University of Calgary. I'm happy to present our work, Gender Congruence and Social Context in XR, Effects on Partner Preference, warmth, Competence and Uncanniness.
Did you know that AI voice changers are starting to get really good? Because this is my voice on AI.
And this is my regular voice.
Have you ever played a game where the character looked female but spoke with a male voice? Or?
I'm Ash Ketchum. I came from Palatown in the Kanto region. And this is my good buddy Pikachu. Nice to meet you.
Or maybe you realize that the voice actor behind your favorite cartoon character was actually a different gender than the character's appearance. What kind of impression did that give you? When what you see and what you hear don't align, people form different impressions. Sometimes it feels natural, or sometimes it feels a little bit awkward. In XR, people can express themselves in very diverse and nuanced way. Your avatar's appearance, your voices, and even how you introduce yourself can all carry different gender cues. And those cues don't necessarily have to match, right? This flexibility shows that the freedom of expression XR makes possible. But what really matters is how others perceive these cues, and especially in different social cues, different social contexts, those perception can change. Meeting in partner avatar in physical task feels different than meeting one in intellectual, social, or romantic context. Our research isn't about restricting this diversity of choices. It's about understanding how these multimodal gender cues, voice, appearance, and identity shape first impressions in XR, so that we can design avatars that are more inclusive and sensitive to the context. Previous research has mostly looked at gender cues one at a time, like just a visual or just a voice. And some more recent researches show that the perception of avatars in XR is shaped not only by those cues, but also by social context where the interaction happens. However, what hasn't really been studied in how different combinations of gender cues are perceived across different contexts. This gap we wanted to address. So in our study, we examined how people perceive avatars that had different combinations of gender cues across multiple social contexts. We focused especially on personal selection in physical, intellectual, social, and romantic scenarios. In each case, participants met avatars with various gender cue combinations, and we analyzed how those impressions were formed. We based our scenarios on one used in prior research where gender cues were known to influence perception. And this way, participants could clearly understand the context, like an intellectual exam scenario shown here, before meeting the avatars, like this. Within each scenario, participants encountered 8 avatars with the different gender cue combination. These combinations came from informed owner gender, the avatar's visual gender, and avatar's vocal gender. Each factor had 2 levels, male or female. The avatar's visual gender was manipulated through the model design. The vocal gender was manipulated from the generated voices, and the informed owner was conveyed through the name, like an Emily or David, kind of. After meeting each avatar, participants rated their partner preference, perception of warmth and competence, and their sense of uncanniness.
Hi there. I'm Emma. Nice to see you here. I'm in my 2nd year at the University of Calgary. I was born and raised here in this city.
Yeah, on the left, the gender cues are all aligned.
Hi, you can call me Liam. It's great to see you here. I'm in my 2nd year at the University of Calgary. I was born in this city.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Henry. I'm currently in my 2nd year at the University of Calgary. And yes, I was born and raised right here in Calgary.
In the middle and on the right, the cues are not aligned. This allowed us to directly compare congruent and incongruent avatars. For the study, we recruited 40 participants balanced by gender from diverse backgrounds. People have many different gender identities and orientations, but in this study, we try to focus on, especially on cisgender heterosexual participants to keep the condition consistent. Each participant experienced all 8 avatar conditions for each scenario using a Latin square design. After every encounter, they gave ratings and open feedback. Let's start with the physical task. Here, participants clearly prepared avatars when the informed gender and the voice matched. So, a male owner with a male voice or a female owner with a female voice felt more trustworthy. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. They linked strong, consistent voices with physical ability and confidence. For the intellectual task, the pattern shifted. Avatars with the female cues stood out, like when both the owner and the voice were female, or when the visual and the voice were female, those avatars were preferred more often. In fact, female cues were generally prepared, even if everything wasn't perfectly aligned. These challenges the stereotype that men dominated in the intellectual ability from the prior, for a long time ago, studies. And then participants often described female avatars as more focused and capable. Yeah, in the social scenario, the voice was mattered most again, especially female voices. Avatars with female voices paired with either female owner or a female appearance were consistently rated higher. People found them the warmer, friendlier, and easier to approach, which fits expectations in social settings. Next one is the romantic scenario. In the romantic scenario, congruence was the key. The more the owner gender, the appearance, the voice aligned, the higher the preference. Avatars with fully mismatching or matching cues are especially fully matching female cues scored especially high. Well, even small mismatches created discomfort, showing that in romance, consistency really matters. Like this. Looking at the graph for the warmth and competence, avatars with female voices were rated warmer, especially when paired with the visual or owner gender. The competence plot shows that the same pattern. The female voices scored slightly higher than male voices. So the key takeaway in that the voice, particularly a female voice, was the most influential cue for both warmth and competence. The final one is uncanniness. Looking at the graph, whenever the informed gender, visual gender, and the vocal gender didn't align, participants rated the avatars as more uncanny. For example, the female informed gender paired with the male voice or the visual increased discomfort. So overall, multimodal gender mismatches raised the perception of uncanniness. But context mattered in the uncanniness. In intellectual and social tasks, some mismatches combinations, like a female voice with a male figure, were actually seen positively, showing that acceptance depends on the situation. To sum up, the gender perception in XR in highly context sensitive across all scenarios is voice-dominated impressions. Mismatches often created discomfort through in some context they were accepted. So what does means for the design? Avatars should adapt to the context. Designers should treat voice as the primary cue even more than appearance. And mismatches aren't always bad. Sometimes they can work. That's why avatar system need to support flexible, context-aware adjustments. Of course, our study has limitations. We only include the cisgender and heterosexual participants, and our avatars, okay, were limited to binary genders. Interaction was short and scripted. So for the next study, we're gonna do that the more broader. We're gonna include more broader identities and long-term and dynamic interactions. Yeah, that's the takeaway, and thank you for listening.
Questions? Yes, over here.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for the interesting research. So, I think one of the important factor is the participants' gender, except the avatars mix or unmatched or unmatched gender. So, is there any related analysis related to the participants' gender?
Oh, for sure. Good question. Thank you. I waited that question. Yeah. We also examined the participants' gender effects through the mixed ANOVA. Because when we received the review, the all reviewers asked, oh, is there any consideration of the participant gender? So we analyzed it again, and then we found out that participant gender had, yeah, absolutely, not absolutely. There is no main effect, but there is an interaction effects among the preference and uncanniness stuff. The interesting part, the preference part is quite similar to the previous mentioned before in the paper presentation, like that congruence was important in the especially physical and romantic scenario. But the uncanniness result was quite interesting. For the male participants felt more discomfort with the same visual genders than the mismatched one. So it's, yeah, quite interesting result that I thought. Yeah, those kind of things. So more detailed information is in our paper, so you can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much.
We have time for one more question, short. Okay, let's thank our speaker. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Junyoung Keum from Busan National University, Korea, and today I will be presenting my research titled Entering Your Space, How Agent Entrance Tiles Shape Social Presence in AR. We use voice-only assistants like Siri, Bixby, or Alexa for simple tasks. More recently, people also use ChatGPT's voice mode for casual conversation or even counseling. Voice-only interaction is hands-free and simple, but without nonverbal cues, it lacks the naturalness and immersion of human conversation. With the spread of HMDs, people can now access VR and AR more easily. For example, Apple's Vision Pro let us bring our familiar smartphone environment directly into XR. This means that assistants like Siri or even ChatGPT's voice mode could be used seamlessly inside XR. And in these immersive environments, we now have the opportunity to embody voice assistants, giving them a visible presence in the user space. The researchers have developed embodied conversational agents that incorporate nonverbal cues, like gestures and facial expressions. Recent studies have extended these interactions beyond 2D displays to immersive environments such as VR and AR. However, if the agent in AR remain visible when users don't use them, this not only disrupts the user's view, but also reduces usability. Also, the agent violating physical rules could reduce users' perceived presence. Therefore, ideally, this agent should only appear when we call them or activate the mode. However, there has been little research on how this embodied agent should actually appear within the user's field of view, a concept we refer to as entrance style in this paper. So in this study, we explore how embodied conversational agents should appear in AR when they are summoned. Because AR is often used in confined spaces like rooms or offices, the way these agents enter the scene can be constrained by spatial limitations. So we examine how different and plausible entrance styles influence users' perceptions, not only of the agent functionality, but also their sense of social presence and co-presence. These are our research questions and corresponding hypotheses. First research question is, how does the degree of plausibility in an agent entrance style affect users' perceived social presence and co-presence? And our corresponding hypothesis is, higher plausible entrance style will lead to higher ratings of social presence and co-presence. Second research question is, how does the degree of plausibility in an agent entrance style affect users' perception of its functionality as an assistant? And our corresponding hypothesis is, higher plausible entrance style will lead to higher ratings of perceived functionality. In our study, we tested 4 different entrance styles. The first one is the baseline. This condition is designed to replicate a typical voice assistant. When the user summons the agent, it simply responds verbally and then it deactivates after answering, with no visual appearance at all. In low plausibility condition, the agent appears in the air next to the question board within the user's view and also disappears from the same location. This scenario represents low plausibility if it were a real person and the user observed that odd moment. In moderate plausibility condition, the agent emerges from behind the user and walks to the interaction position, and the agent walks back to the emergence position and disappears. Users are aware that the space behind them is confined and vacant, making this scenario implausible if the agent were a real person. However, users are less likely to observe these awkward moments. In high plausibility condition, the agent emerges from the hallway behind the wall that connected to the external space, enters the room, and stands at the interaction position. This condition represents the most plausible entrance style if the agent were a real person. In this experiment, participants performed a problem-solving task. In one condition, they read 3 short paragraphs and answered 3 questions for each. Importantly, one of the questions could not be directly inferred from the text. This ensured that participants summoned the agent at least 3 times per condition. When participant asked a question, the agent provided an answer, and participants selected their response based on it. This slide shows an example passage, a question, and a sample dialogue between the user and the agent. The question board was placed 2 meters in front of the participant position, and the interaction position of the agent was placed 1.7 meters from the participant position across all conditions. We analyzed the data from 38 participants using a Friedman test and Wilcoxon signed rank test with Bonferroni correction. For both social presence and co-presence, we found that the baseline conditions scored significantly lower than embodied conditions. In addition, the low plausibility condition received lower ratings compared to the moderate and high plausibility conditions. However, there was no significant differences between moderate and high plausibility condition. So overall, this result partially supports our first hypothesis. For functionality, there were no significant differences, so we rejected the second hypothesis. This may be because all agents across conditions gave correct answers, and the questionnaire mainly measured whether the agent provided the basic functions to complete the task, which was true in every case. For the objective measures, we tracked participants' head position and orientation at 10 frames per sec. For visual attention, we focused on the 5 seconds right after the agent appeared and 5 seconds before it disappeared, measuring how often participants look at the agent per frame. The middle section, the green shaded area in this figure, was excluded because its duration varied across participants. In the graph, the bubble size shows how many participants attended to the agent at each frame. Red lines mark when the agent appeared and disappeared, and blue lines shows when it arrived and left by walking. And in the high plausibility condition, the green lines indicate when the agent became visible or occluded by the wall. Overall, as plausibility increased, participants experienced fewer awkward moments when the agent appeared and disappeared. In the low plausibility condition, some participants directly saw the agent suddenly appear or disappear. Even if others didn't catch that exact moment, those transitions happened within their field of view, so they were still noticeable. In the moderate plausibility condition, participants couldn't see the agent's initial appearance, but a few who followed its movement until the end did notice its odd disappearance. Finally, in the high plausibility condition, no one actually saw the agent appear or disappear because it stayed behind the wall the whole time. For head movement, we measured the ratio of head movement during periods when the agent was visible compared to the entire session. The results show that participants moved their head the most in the moderate plausibility condition. This is likely because in the moderate plausibility condition, the agent appeared and disappeared behind the participant, so they had to move their head more to follow those movements. We did sentiment analysis based on the comments participants wrote at the end of each condition. The key finding here is that negative comments were much more frequent when plausibility was low. Specifically, the low plausibility condition showed the highest proportion of negative feedback, while the high plausibility condition had the least. Based on both our subjective and objective findings, we proposed design guidelines for XR embodied assistants. Since we found no differences in functionality across all conditions, and some participants even preferred faster responses in the voice-only or low plausibility condition, we recommend these intern styles for tasks that require efficiency and speed, such as checking the weather or setting an alarm. On the other hand, for tasks that demand higher engagement, like education, counseling, or emotional sensitive interactions, higher plausibility intern styles are more suitable. Prior research also shows that stronger social presence can enhance perceived competence of the agent and make users more willing to disclose personal information. One limitation of our study is that we overlook users' perceived privacy. Some participants felt uneasy. For example, one said that a voice-only agent felt invisible but constantly watching them, while another felt uncomfortable when the agent suddenly walked into the view. Future work should include measures of perceived privacy across different intern styles and explore personalized approaches to ensure users feel secure. Also, our study mainly focused on tasks with a high visual load. For example, one participant said that they felt more focused on reading when using a voice-only agent compared to when an embodied agent appeared. So results may differ for tasks that do not involve heavy visual processing. Future research should also explore scenarios like games or conversational scenarios. Lastly, in our study, we only used female human-like agents. Some participants mentioned that they would prefer to customize the agent appearance, which might increase their attachment. Future research should explore how appearance interacts with entrance style. For example, cartoon style or smaller sized agent might make sudden appearance feel more acceptable than realistic human models. In conclusion, our results show that high plausibility entrance styles enhance social presence and co-presence. But interestingly, the moderate plausibility condition performed just as well, and in some cases, even slightly better than the high conditions. Since the high high plausibility condition requires complex environmental recognition and path planning. The moderate condition emerges as a practical alternative, especially in confined spaces like AR. Yeah, this is the end of my presentation, and thank you for your attention.
Questions? Yes, over here.
First of all, thank you for the great talk, very interesting topic. You hypothesize that the low plausibility appearance of a cartoon-like characters will be more accepted.
Yeah.
What about doors or portals that appear and the agent walks through it? Maybe it's easier to...
Yeah, thank you for your comments. We also considered the door or portal things to appear the agent, but in this research, we just consider if the agent is real person, what is a plausible entrance style can be. So, yeah. Thank you.
Another question? We have time for one more. So I know you're focused on embodied agents, so a bit of a silly question, but here, of course, the plausibility matters a lot because the user perceives the agent as some body that's governed by gravity and the laws of physics. But would it change if the embodied agent was something that the user didn't perceive as governed, like a genie or a Superman or something? Do you think, in what ways do you think the results might hold, or in what ways would you expect it would change?
Oh yeah, if the agent's appearance have like superpower, you mean genie or Superman, the low plausibility condition can be acceptable than the realistic humans. Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Okay, great. All right, well, let's thank all of our